Thank you. You probably don't know this, but I used to be a teacher, and therefore, I need to have a clicker. Kevin, can you come back and give me the clicker, please? Wherever you are. Never mind, we'll get started. Or can somebody give me the clicker? I used to be a teacher. That was one of the first jobs that I did. So if I come across quite teacherly, then that's kind of why. Can I have this? So I would like to talk to you, share a few thoughts and some ideas with you today. Let me tell you a little bit about myself to introduce myself. So I do some writing, I do some research, I do some advisory consultancy work on the service, engagement, experience sort of space. These are some of the brands that I've worked for. There's a post-it note for one which I can't put the brand up there, so you probably know what that is, just for legal reasons. But the thing that I'm really interested in, and sort of the only thing that I'm really interested in, is how do we drive better outcomes for both our customers, our employees, and our businesses. And if we can do all three at the same time, then that's the perfect trifecta, right? And so what I wanted to do today is to share with you some ideas and some ideas about what I think is actually going right and what I think is actually going wrong and where the opportunity lies in the whole experience sort of space. But first of all, I want to start with a story, if I may. And here's a quick pop quiz. Who can tell me, if my brand or one of the books I've written is called Punk CX, who can tell me why I use these colors on these slides?
No one else does.
Sorry?
No one else does.
Well, that's true. So there is a cognitive dissonance thing going on there, like, pay attention. It's pink and it's yellow. But in a punk context, what is pink and yellow akin to? Yes, sir? Bollocks, yes. Thank you. Yes, indeed. The Sex Pistols album, Nevermind the Bollocks. So it's an homage to that. So I want to start with a story, first of all, and it's a real story. Let me set the scene. So like a few years ago, I was asked to go and, with a colleague, to go and do, if you like, an audit of a big insurance company, a life insurance company in the UK, one of the biggest life insurance companies in the UK. We were asked to go and do an audit of their CX activities. So we went to visit them, we spoke to lots of different sort of people, and it was interesting. So we went to this building that was off. They were on a big campus, and there was like a building, a special building. I think they called it a skunk works at the time. I think that was the en vogue term. And there was a digital team, and there was a lean team, and there was an agile team, and then there was also a CX team. They'd done all these different sort of things. And we said, okay, brilliant. Show us what you've done, and they show us all these different things, told all these different initiatives that they've done, built these apps, did all this research, did all these kind of journey mapping activities. And I said, okay, fine. Tell me about the impact it's had. And they were like, well, here's the thing, not much. And one wag quipped, said, actually, we have got some nice office art out of it. So all the journey maps, they were beautifully designed, they all go up on the wall, they all look very nice, absolutely no use to anybody. Anybody familiar with that sort of idea? Done a whole bunch of journey maps and they basically become a whole bunch of nice pictures? Familiar? Yeah. And then we said, okay, that's fine. You've not had that much impact. You've done all these different things. You've not had that much impact. So I said, well, okay, tell me about the core business. Tell me about what's happening there. And the core business is a life insurance business. And so and I said, well, is it growing? Is it stable? What's happening? And they said, well, no, it's sizable. It's growing at single-digit percentages per year. So for a sizable kind of being, it's still, it's interesting, it's got a decent amount of growth, and it's very, very profitable. I said, okay, fine. I said, what are some of the biggest pain points for both customers and employees in the whole experience of life insurance? And so we talked about that. I said, what's one of the biggest ones? And they said, well, actually, let's go find out. So they went and found out, spoke to lots of different people that dealt with customers. And one of the biggest pain points that they found out is what happens when somebody dies. Because what happens when somebody dies when you have a life insurance policy is it switches into power of attorney. And it's only the person that has the power of attorney that has the right to make a claim on the policy, right? So let me ask you a question. You can answer this if you're not. This might be a bit too personal. Who here has either life insurance or critical illness cover? Right? Who definitely has power of attorney in place for your life insurance or critical illness cover? Not as many people. Therein lies the problem. Because if you've gone through this, or if you've had any experience about this, when you don't have power of attorney in place, it's a very ugly process. Because the business, because there's sizable financial sums involved, has to go through all sorts of fraud checks, identity checks, all these different things, and it's quite an onerous process. It's quite an onerous process for the family of the deceased, who are in that sort of bereavement process, but also having to try to administer the business of death. Sorry for this, quite heavy for a Tuesday morning, but the point is very relevant. But it's also onerous on the employees, because it's a difficult thing for employees they want to help, particularly their agents, they want to help, but to tell somebody that, no, you can't do this because you don't have the right sort of paperwork, so we don't have the right sort of identity checks in place, that becomes really hard, particularly when you're speaking to somebody who's bereaved, right? So it costs the business. It's a very heavy emotional problem. It costs the business, both internally, but also from a customer perspective. So when we zoomed and zoned in on that, I said to the CX team, I said, do you not think that you could take all the skills, the tools and the techniques and the attributes that you have and apply it to that problem that would make things easier for both the customer, also the employee, and therefore drive business results? And they were like, yeah, maybe. And so they did, and it had a big impact. The interesting thing that happened with that is that they were able to generate relevance for the core business. And I think that's a key thing. The whole idea, the whole domain of customer experience is still relatively new. But we've got businesses that are relatively old and established. And actually the key to generating, if you like, momentum in that CX space and credibility is to drive relevance to the core business. That CX team was able to then show their relevance to the core business by leveraging their tool set and their techniques and their capabilities to make a difference to the core business. In order to do that, they did a very, very key thing. When they did that, they were able to acquire a very, very key thing, which is I call organizational social capital. They used their capabilities to make somebody else's life easier and better. And by doing that, and generating that social capital and that relevance, they then got backing to do other things and support to do other things, when in a large enterprise context is incredibly important. You with me? So the lesson from all of that, for me, I believe, and the whole CX sort of space and the sort of leaders and professional sort of space is that it's not about your tools or your techniques. It's about the problems that you solve and whose lives you make better. Because too often do we get caught up in what we're going to do, what tools we're going to deploy, what techniques we're going to use, or what technologies we might deploy, because that's what we know. But actually, we need to focus and zero in on the problems that we need to solve in order to make people's lives better. So like Kevin was talking about, we focus on the outside in, focus on solving kind of customers' problems that are then generate relevance for the business. We had to sort of flip things on its head. It's a bit like, it reminds me of, there's a quote from Einstein, which says, if you give me an hour to solve a problem, I'll spend 55 minutes thinking about the problem and 5 minutes solving it. And yet, we generally do the opposite in a modern organizational context. We spend about 5 minutes thinking about it and then 55 minutes solving it. And we wonder why we don't get the outcomes that we want. So I tell you that story because it's about, I wanted to start by saying, actually, it's about the problems we focus on, the problems that we solve. And it sets a context for what I think is going on in the CX sort of space, the CX landscape. And there's a whole bunch of things that I think are happening. First of all, many brands really want to deliver a great and compelling and engaging customer experience. But customers are frustrated. There's research from all over the place that says that customers are unsatisfied with the experiences that are being delivered to them. Now, that's not to say that the brands are necessarily doing a poor job. I think what's happening is that customers' expectations are rising at a faster rate than brands can keep up. But I think that within that, I think there's some things that we need to think about, which is driving that frustration. And one of those is that, I heard somebody yesterday talking about, well, we can do X, Y, and Z, and it will help us increase our deflection. Well, customers don't really want to be deflected. Actually, customers want to use these tools to help themselves. But here's the trick. There was recent Gartner research that I saw quoted by a Belgian professor the other day, and he said that the Gartner research showed that 73% of all customers want to use these digital tools that we're developing that are going to allow customers to help themselves, to self-serve, right? So customers don't want to be deflected. They actually want to use the tools. They want to self-serve. The fascinating thing is that technology's taught us to do this. Think about it. What is the first thing that you do when you have a question that you don't know the answer to? You do this, right? You go. So Google and search engines have trained us to do this. And so we know that we're happy to self-serve. The trick is the same piece of research found that of those 73% of customers that wanted to use these self-service tools, only 14% had been able to solve the problem. What does that tell you? The tools are garbage. And here's why I think they're garbage. Because most of them are designed, are put in place, and it's supposed to be to try and help customers solve the problems in a way that customers understand, right? So let me ask you a question. Who are the people in your organization that are experts in conversations with customers, that are speaking to customers on an hourly and daily basis? Who are they? Sales and support? Right. And probably more support if you're dealing with customer problems, right? Let me ask another question. How many of those customer conversation experts are involved in the conception and design of the tools that are being deployed to try and help customers? Tumbleweed. Exactly. And therein lies the problem. What we're not doing is we're not leveraging what I call this network of biological supercomputers that exist in our organization. We're not leveraging that collective intelligence in conceiving and designing and deploying the tools that we need to serve our customers, that customers want to use to serve their problems. That's what's driving a lot of this frustration. And that links to this second thing, which is the real Achilles heel, I think, of what's going on in the CX space. You have all these brands that talk about, oh, we have this great vision for what we want to do. But when you interrogate the vision, what you actually normally find is you find that most brands' vision or their experience vision and their strategy is nothing more than a random assemblage of buzzwords that's all been tacked together. Usually it contains seamless, AI-powered, possibly omni-channel, digital, outstanding, market-leading experience in whatever order you might prefer, or variations on a theme. Do you understand what I mean? And that's the Achilles heel. Because what they haven't done is they haven't gone down to that next level, which says, that's all fine, that can be your big banner vision. But what does it mean? What does it mean for different types of customers? What does it mean for different types of customers at different points in their journey? What is the human and technology can balance at the different points in those journeys? And how are you going to use some of these advanced technologies like artificial intelligence to both either support customers directly or support the people that are dealing with your customers? And how does that design and that sort of envisioning translate into like a blueprint for the service and experience that you want to design? And what does that mean in terms of the technological architecture? And where are the gaps? And where are the capabilities that you need to build and fill in order to achieve that? The Achilles heel is they don't have the granular understanding to drive the execution that they need to deliver on their promises to customers. And it goes back to that quote that came from Einstein around, if you give me an hour to solve a problem, I'll spend 55 minutes thinking about it and 5 minutes solving it. Because too often people come up with this big vision and then they get off to doing stuff. And then they wonder why it doesn't kind of like work out. But the people that lead take the time to do that work because it's very intentional, it's very considered, and it's very deliberate. And that's how they deliver. Second thing is that the third thing rather is that the world is mobile first, which is hugely data rich. I mean, I think Statista has data that says, is it 55, 60% of all internet traffic is from a mobile now? But most experiences aren't optimized for mobile. They don't leverage that as a data-rich channel. We're not designing our experience to be mobile first, given that the world is showing us that it's mobile first. But what's not helping brands is the technology landscape is mind-bogglingly complicated. Who here is familiar with a guy by the name of Scott Brinker? Somebody who knows a site called chiefmartech.com? Yeah? So you know the technology landscape that he publishes every year? Do you know how many in his MarTech landscape? Do you know what the latest number is in terms of the number of applications that are in that MarTech space? How many? Add 10,000 to that. It's about 12,000 different applications in that MarTech space. So no wonder brands get overawed by what's kind of going on. there is this thing psychologically, and I think it affects the B2B buying space, particularly in technology terms. It's called the paradox of choice. And what happens is that we say that we want choice. It's a thing it feels nice to us, right? We all like choice, right? Yes? But here's the thing. What happens, choice is great and we feel good about it, and we want to have choice because we want to have freedom and free will to choose, but then it stops us choosing because it confuses our brain. It gums up our mental channels. Psychology and scientific research has proven that actually we need to sometimes narrow the choice for people in order to help them choose. And I think that's where some of the opportunity lies, is as when you're working in that space and you're working to try and help brands, is to try and simplify that choice for them. But it all relates back to that, some of that Achilles heel stuff, is getting clear on what it is you want to do and what you want to deliver. But within that midst of complication, then there's also this other sort of changing technology requirements, because as we're seeing technology mature and customers will increasingly be able to self-serve on some of the more simple stuff, then what will come into our organization that will require help will be more complex and more complicated problems that will require different technological architecture to be able to solve that. Will require more involvement from the middle office and the back office to be able to solve these kind of problems, which is then having implications for the ComStack space. And so we're seeing either UCaaS players moving forward into the CCaaS space, or CCaaS moving back into the UCaaS space, or the emergence of unified stack players. So there's bigger things going on, and those moves are complicated by the fact that you end up having different enterprise buyers in those spaces. And so it sort of slows up and gums up the process. So those are some of the things that are going on. There's customers are frustrated, brands need to get their act together, and the whole environment is changing. The technology environment is changing, but it's not all doom and gloom. I think there is huge opportunity there for brands that want to do better, that want to swim against the tide, that want to try and do something which stands out, but it doesn't just follow the crowd, but actually stands out and is differentiated. Because customers are ready, they want better, but also brands need help. But we're also seeing they want help in different ways, because we're also seeing lots of moves. I'm seeing lots of moves from brands that are starting to lean on technology vendors and other strategic kind of partners to help them do more of this, to fulfill more of this promise, to get clearer on what all this means for them and how to deliver it. As they move, I've seen signs of many brands moving to more of a core competency model of delivery and relying on some of their outsourced partners or the technology partners to deliver a lot of that kind of capability that they need in order to deliver on their brand promises. And that particularly in the technology space, and particularly in the sort of artificial intelligence space, because despite what many brands are saying, they're struggling to keep up. There's this massive thing going on right now, is that they say they want something, but they actually don't know what they're buying. Somebody told me a horror story yesterday. Horror story. Where somebody came in and said, we need to do a thing with Gen AI. And they were like, okay. Why is that? What we just do? And so tell me about the problem, what are we trying to solve? And they said, right, here's the thing. And they were like, and the person that was telling me the story said to the customer, said, actually, I don't think you really need generative AI for that particular problem. You could quite easily do that with a logic-based sort of approach, or maybe a predictive sort of approach. And they were like, yeah, no, but we need to do generative AI. And it's just like, okay, step back, hang on, tell me what's really going on here. And the person went, well, I've got generative AI KPIs. Frightening. What can you do? And we have to be, and we have a responsibility to educate people and our peers and our colleagues and our leaders and our communities about what is possible and what is not kind of possible, what is appropriate and what is not. Because there's too many of this FOMO type stuff going on. There's too many people that are saying, this is like the panacea. This is the thing that we have to do because everybody else is doing it. No, you need to start from the experience and the strategy that you want to deliver, and then think about what's the most appropriate thing to deliver that. Because it's not about the tech, but it is a little bit. And we need to do this. Who's that quote from? Okay. Second question, what year was it quoted? Sorry, shout out?
87.
Sorry?
87.
Prize for the gentleman in the front row. Yes, Apple Dev Conference in 1987. If you don't know the story behind this, this is what Steve Jobs said when he was announcing all the big changes that was going on at Apple, and some wag in the audience kind of challenged him on what he was saying, and he was physically, if you haven't seen the clip, you should look up, he was physically kind of taken aback, and he sort of took a step back and then went and thought for a little while, and eventually said a whole bunch of things, but this was a core of what he said. And this becomes part of the Apple's kind of guiding philosophy, which was, let me do the maths, that was 37 years ago? Oh my word, 37 years ago. You've got to start with the customer experience and work backwards to the technology. You can't do the opposite. And I think we need to keep that in mind, because there's too many brands that are not doing that with their promises. They're almost buying technology and figuring out what to do with it, rather than starting with envisioning what it is they want to achieve, what they want to deliver, and then thinking about what sort of technology and what sort of partners they need to work with in order to deliver that. And if you do that and you stay true to that, then you win, because the opportunity is there. It's pretty easy, right? No? Sorry? Well, now you know. So go forth and conquer. And so that's all I have. I just wanted to say thank you for your attention, thank you for your time today. My name's Adrian Swinscoe, and I wish you all the best in your kind of experience and endeavors in the future. Thank you very much. Are you chucking the cube around?
Do we have the cube available? It's right here. All right. Let's take a few questions. We got just a few minutes. Any questions? Thomas. You want to try my arm from here?
Nice. Oh, this is awesome. All right. So, Adrian, thank you so much for that talk. I want to ask for your opinion on something which I think is really right in front of us.
Okay.
There are some solutions you can increment to, some solutions you can't.
Mm-hmm.
For instance, you can't go to the moon by pointing yourself at it and taking the next step.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't the problem with AI that there's a new palette of things to make great customer experiences with, and therefore, because it's so shockingly new, that even though you can't hit what you don't aim for, right? If you want to aim for the best customer experience, we have a very new set of tools to do that. How do you recommend that we bridge the gap from now designing products with tools we never had?
So I think we need to, first of all, I think we need to recognize and educate ourselves on what is the art of the possible. But we should use that in helping us to try and envision and describe what it is we want to deliver. And if that will be informed by what we understand what is possible and what is not possible with these kind of new tools and this new kind of palette. But it's a bit like the tail wagging the dog or the dog wagging the tail. Which one are you trying to do? Are you a dog or are you a tail, right? And I think we need to stay true to imagining what it is that we want to deliver and how we want to deliver. What is the connection and the feeling that we want to evoke with our customers? And what we need to be wary of is not, if you like, delegating responsibility for creativity and connection to technology. That's the thing that we need to hold on to, is like, what is the human connection? And all of these things are tools. And the tools will change, and they'll get better, and they will develop. But the human connection is the thing that we're going to hold on to. And I think that's what we need to design for and think about what are the tools that we can use and how they develop over time that can facilitate that. And don't lose sight of the humanness, because we're all in business to help people do the things they need to do. And up until now, robots don't have bank accounts. And so we're the only ones that have bank accounts, so we have to serve each other.
That's right. All right. Well, thank you, Adrian.
We're good? Thank you. We good?
We're good.
Thank
Thank you so much. Again, taking that human element is what we really want to focus on today and work backwards from that. Next, we're going to be joined by Hakeem from KPN. We'd like to welcome you up to the stage. Welcome. We're
Absolutely.
excited to hear from the carrier perspective
Absolutely.
on what we're going to do.
Very glad to share our story.